all valid law may be said to be derived from divine law. And the highest and most accepted golden rule of all divine law is that all are equal under the law and subject to the law. Any law that attempts to abrogate this fact is null and void ab initio and is not a valid law. Natural law is a law that defines the operation of the will of the divine through its existence in the form of matter and physical rules. Natural law defines the operation and existence of the physical universe. All valid positive law may be said to be derived from natural law. Cognitive law is a set of laws that define the special attributes possessed by certain higher order life, such as mind, ideas, knowledge, recognition, and self-awareness created through the simultaneous application of both divine law and natural law. Positive law is the laws enacted by men and women through proper authority for the governance of a society. Positive law ultimately refers to the physical objects and living beings. All valid positive law may be said to be derived from natural law and cognitive law. The positive law cannot abrogate, suspend, usurp, nor change a cognitive law or natural law, nor is it possible for a cognitive law or natural law to abrogate, suspend, usurp, or change a divine law. Therefore, it is not by the will of men to decide when God speaks. It is not to the authority of the church that the Lord submits, but the church that submits to God. And no matter how great the claim authority of a person, it cannot be greater than the divine creator. No matter how ancient a scripture or belief, it cannot be older than the creator of the universe. And no matter how firm a doctrine of faith, it cannot stand should it be against the laws of the divine. All the words ever written and spoken in defense of doctrine and law cannot stand if against these truths. Indeed, the foundation of all civilized rule of law, including all Western Roman law, begins with the acknowledgement that the highest law comes from the divine creator of all things in the universe, expressed through the laws of the universe and then through the reason and spirit of man to make positive law. The very meaning and essence of the idea of office is derived from ecclesiastical and ceremonial duty, officium, and service when in possession of some circumscribed space, such as a chapel, temple, altar, or sanctuary. In recognition of the fact that the legitimacy of office is through the recognition of supremacy of divine law over positive law, the investiture of people into office is normally created upon a sacred and ecclesiastical oath to some higher spiritual power. One moment. Therefore, all valid official positions of all legitimate governments of all societies on planet Earth depend on the acknowledgement and recognition that the highest law comes from the divine creator of all things in the universe. And the very meaning and purpose of the word authority is derived from the creation of instruments and pronouncements of law, in accordance with ecclesiastical ritual, ceremony, or property. Therefore, all legitimate authority of all officials of all valid governments of all societies on planet Earth depend on the acknowledgement and recognition that all authority is ultimately derived from the highest authority being the divine creator of all things in the universe. Even the very financial system of the present world is based on the existence of the treasury of one heaven and the continued existence of indulgences as created by the Roman cult, also known as the Venetian Magyar, controlled Vatican at the end of the 13th century. Thus, the very existence of all societies and the idea of rule of law across planet Earth is dependent on the idea of the existence of the divine creator, also known as unique collective awareness. As the authority and legitimacy of an office is derived from ecclesiastical authority, then the obeying of the rule of law is not merely duty, but necessary for the lawful effect of any action. This is because no spiritual force may flow through natural law and positive law of this world if the sacred rules that establish such law are willingly broken. It is why through the original laws of trust between the entrustor and the entrustee, known as fiduciary laws, require such diligence. It is also why the laws between the trustee and the beneficiary, originally known as the laws of equity, are equally as stringent. And while contract and administrative law over the past 200 years has deliberately corrupted the certainty of obligations of executors and trustees appointed to office, it remains an immutable truth that to hold office remains both the highest honour and duty of service. And when a man or woman seeks to cling to office and yet deny their obligations and duties, they automatically excommunicate themselves from any spiritual authority, thereby rendering such acts merely enforceable through ignorance, force, or fear. And when a man or woman seeks to cling to office through the use of ignorance, force, and fear, denying their dependency on legitimacy from the divine creator and divine law, then no action or decree can be regarded as lawful, as their tenure can only hold so long as their power holds. In some cases, a tyrannical system only lasts for a few years. On other examples, a system of tyranny may survive for hundreds of years before finally being rooted out. The three ages of the cult of Mithraism, the cult of the Menes of Tarsus, and the land pirate families of the Khazar clans are three such groups. Well, let me stop there and give myself a rest, and thank you all who still remain on the call. The reason I wanted to speak those out and speak them to you is that the truth of what Martin Luther must have done in the context of the time that he was alive was to present a series of arguments that made sense and resonated in truth with the people that he hoped to speak to. And when we speak of the ruling elite breaking the law, when we speak of our desire to be recognized as men and women possessing, sometimes we call it sovereign rights, but other the rights granted to us by the divine creator, these are common aspirations that pretty much anyone in the truth movement is trying to express. And what we've tried to do here is present it in a framework that makes logical sense of those arguments, that presents them in a logical order, presents them in a form, if you want, of a claim and rebuttal and argument, so that we can be very, very clear exactly what we're saying. As we're developing the canons of law and we're developing the codes of law, as we're finishing the elements necessary as the foundation of UCADIA, what continues to take the time is the deliberate confusion and overlay that has taken place within the existing framework of law of the Roman cult. So we need to be absolutely clear, even if some of these words for many of you seem almost motherhood or self-evident. I hope as you hear it, it makes sense. We're now going to embark on the historical elements, and so it's going to get pretty heavy as we're going through here, but there is a reason that the next few sections get into the historic elements, is that this is a shot across the bow of the ruling elite to say, we know who you are. We know where you come from. Even if you believe your own stories, even if you're still peddling certain myths, we know who you are. Well, I won't read them out necessarily because I think in the time that's allowed, I'd like to cover more the reason for them and some of the highlights of them rather than simply reading them out. But I urge you from number 75 right through to number 113 that you read these and go through the history of them. Certainly there is plenty of history to support them. What I will do is I would like to read to you, share with you, from 114 to the end to 144. But as you look at the history, some of it will be confronting for you, some of it will be new to you, some of it will be strange to you. But all that history can be backed up in terms of material that has been researched and certainly evidence that is available to show that it is true. So let's start by reading from 114 to wrap up this, and then we'll talk about, hopefully, how Ritterspira may be promulgated. So for 114. This is the twisted and tortured truth of the world hidden from view, hidden from history, and known to few. And this is the revelation of how we have been deceived and how those loyally serve their insane leaders have also been deceived. That those who claim ancient religious right to rule are without valid claim, basing their arguments on fabulous fictions easily exposed. That those who claim ancient blood right are nothing more than impostors, with the Khazars originating as land pirates on the steppes of Mongolia and the Caucasus, and nowhere near the Levant, nor Egypt, nor Europe. And that those who claim power via magic and divine right are the same who destroyed their own covenant in World War II, thus ending any claim of contentious faith or religion. They are without credibility, without provenance, without history, without authority, and yet they persist. They persist with the lie that they have a divine right to rule, with all who are not members of their family being nothing more than cattle. And they persist with the lie that they follow the rule of law, when they destroyed their own covenant 80 years ago and have failed to follow their own laws for centuries. And they persist with the lie that there's no slavery, yet through the banking system they continue to claim ownership of our body, mind and soul through occult rituals around birth certificates, trusts and bindings. And they are insane, bereft of competency, unable to see their own history, and yet they would rather destroy the world than cede an inch. Despite such mental illness and dishonor, divine notice has required that they receive fair warning of their pending doom at the hand of the greatest divine miracle in civilized history. They have been warned in prophecy and stories for centuries, yet have ignored all such warnings. They were officially warned by notice 2 years ago upon the existence of the sacred covenant, Pactum de Singularis Caelum, and yet they have remained mute. Once again, their officials were warned 1 year ago of this dishonor, and they still ignored divine notice. No group in history has been repeatedly warned to restore their honor with the divine. No group in history has been repeatedly warned to atone for their actions and restore proper stewardship of the world. And no other time in history have the elite been given so many opportunities to make correction and be forgiven for what they have done. This is now the third and final